would you launch this product? Or how would you figure out what your go-to-market strategy would be? These are questions that you would get during a product interview as a follow-up, or if you're interviewing as a product marketing manager, you will for sure get these interviews. So today, let's talk about how to ace these interviews. Hey guys, I'm Diana and I'm a senior product leader at a big tech company that's based in Silicon Valley, California. So today we are going to talk about 5 things. Well, 5 key agenda points. The first, we're going to talk about a success metric when it comes to marketing. So important to keep in mind. The second is the who we're targeting. Third is what we want to tell them based on what we know about them. Fourth is where are our target users? And number 5 is when we should be speaking to them. So let's dive in. So first, we're talking about success metrics. Why is this even important here? This is important because if you come up with any strategy, you have to have some goal that you're trying to aim for. So here with the marketing goal, some example goals could be maybe you're striving towards some number of purchases if it's, let's say, a hardware product or a physical product. Or if you're an application, you might be targeting for the number of active users. So either way, it's important to keep in mind, start with the end goal in mind. What does that mean? So what I mean is your success metric probably isn't ideal if it's something like views, but rather something like purchases or the number of active users or the number of engaged users, whatever it is, something that you ultimately is the most important thing to you. And then what do you do with that? Then you use that key metric and then you work backwards from it to define the other metrics or levers that are going to help you achieve that key metric. So for example, if we're striving for purchases, let's say we're purchasing, insurance. And here, the levers that are going to get you towards increasing your number of purchases are going to be things like what your reach is if we're talking about marketing. And then after reach or views, you'll probably want to track something like how many of them are then going to your website after they're seeing the initial ad. And then from there, you'll want to figure out how many people need to go from that initial on your website to actually getting to the conversion page to possibly purchase your item. So you see how we want to first set a target for the end goal, whether it's purchases or active users, and then figure out the conversion between each of the other levers to get to that final end goal. And when we talk about success metrics, we want to figure out what time period. Let's say a target for the quarter instead of a target for a month. Because when you're doing marketing, it takes time for people to learn about your product and then for the conversions or whatever your end goal is to actually start rolling in. So make sure you're giving enough time for the marketing activities to actually get digested by people and then to let word of mouth work itself. Next part that's super important to set the foundation for your marketing go-to-market / launch strategy is who are your target users? If you're not clear about who you're shooting for to try to deliver this message to, you will be missing a focus to help you define the other things such as channels or how often you should be marketing to these people. So this part is so critical. And the first piece of defining the who or your target users is to figure out who are the potential segments for your product. And here I want you to come up with segments that you can easily see. So for example, instead of relying on motivation, things that you can't necessarily physically see, but people are thinking of, for example, people who are aspiring singers. That might be something that's hard to then identify in a group of people or to even target. So hence I recommend you aiming for someone with certain physical persona attributes. So for example, if I am targeting an aspiring singer, I might target people who define themselves as artists. And that's important because when you do the targeting, it'll be easier to find those people versus a motivation-based target segment. So let's say you come up with a bunch of target groups. Well, here's the time to prioritize, especially when you set your initial marketing strategy. It's important to speak to specific people to assess whether your marketing strategy is working or not before you scale it up. So now we have some target segments. We then want to prioritize which target segments to go for. And here, your criteria list is like the product sense questions we go through. It starts with total addressable market, frequency, so how often are these people using it? And last and possibly is spend. So which of these groups have the highest possible spend for your product? And that will help you get clarity on who you might target for this marketing strategy. And if you're doing this as a follow-up from the product sense, product design question, you can bring those analyses up from that part down here to the marketing side. A quick note here. If you think about marketing, what are the times when you've seen marketing where you're like, whoa, I have to get this product, or I'm so curious to learn more? A lot of these times is when marketing is personalized to you. So when we think about marketing, it is really, really important to figure out a way to make marketing and the communication feel personal. And that's why it's important to craft your messaging and your strategy differently for each group. I mean, it doesn't have to be night and day between the different strategies, but capture the nuances so that when you're speaking to these groups, they feel special. They feel like your message is so resonating and just designed right for them. But on top of personalized marketing, a balance we have to keep when we do marketing is always scale. And sometimes between personalization and scale, there may be a trade-off. So this is something else you want to consider when you prioritize which channels to go for, what strategies to chase after. So just a quick note there. So let's jump back into our third point, which is the what should we be telling our users that we've identified? This is when you go deeper to understand your target segments. What do they care about? And this is so important because it determines, or should determine, your brand, your positioning, and how you craft your messages all the way down to the tone of your copy, which is the messages that you're communicating either written or verbally. And when we talk about positioning, this also will determine how you are perceived versus your competitors in the market. So this part is really important, and it stems from, again, understanding your target users. So for example, what do you as a product want to be known for? Do you want to be known for the easiest to use? If I said ease of use, what brands come to mind? And I bet there are brands that have associated themselves with that adjective. What about budget friendly? If I say e-commerce budget friendly, what comes to mind? For example, for me, Wish.com would come to mind. If I throw another adjective out there, let's say high quality mobile phones, what comes to mind? Probably Apple. And here the adjective is high quality. If I throw out innovation, what comes to mind? Maybe a company like Google. So here as a brand, you want to be intentional about crafting your brand and positioning in the market, and that adheres to your target segment. There's a lot of great companies that have done phenomenal marketing work. For example, the really well-known Apple commercial from 1997 called Here's to the Crazy Ones. And I love it because here Apple was targeting the people that are innovative thinkers, the ones that they call other rebels, the squares in the round peg holes. And he says, here is to the crazy ones because the crazy ones that think they can change the world actually do. And the branding is speaking so loudly to those who are innovators. So again, establishing the, let's say, adjective that you want to go for will permeate through then to your copy, to your messaging, and even your strategy. And you as a product probably want to be known for a gazillion things. And here is when you need to do the work of prioritizing again. Prioritization is so important because it establishes focus. So 2 things to think of here of the adjectives that you came up with or want to be known for. Number 1, what do you think is the most important to your target users? Again, we're bringing them back. And then number 2, what feels aligned to your company's mission? By the way, if you guys don't want to miss the video where we craft an actual go-to-market strategy for a hypothetical product using this framework, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, step number 4, we're going to be talking about where. Where? What does that mean? That is asking, where are your target users? And here, this is one of my favorite parts, because you really have to figure out, where are your users hanging out? So a couple of questions I'm asking myself here to figure out which channels that I would invest in, or what key parts of the strategy I would execute, are things like, first starts off with determining which countries. And here a prioritization framework might be things like total addressable market, and the second is complexity. For example, if you want to launch a product in Europe, know that you have your work set out for you with GDPR, which are a privacy framework that the whole region has developed. The next part of where you want to ask yourself is, where are these people physically hanging out? For example, for those people targeting the tech community, you know where a lot of these techies are hanging out unintentionally is on the 101. So I was living in San Francisco, and every day I would take the commute from the 101 down to Silicon Valley. And hence, knowing that insight means a lot of people are showing billboards on that drive, because we know we're going to be spending a lot of time there. If you're targeting folks in, say, New York City, you know we spend a heck of a lot of time in the subway system. So now a lot of the tech companies have gotten really smart and have basically plastered the city subway, the insides of it, with just ads. And I know companies like Grubhub and Venmo were early in taking advantage of that, as you can see in these photos. So next question is, where are your target users getting their content? Whether it's entertainment or news, are they getting it from places like Instagram, Snapchat for you youngins, or are they getting their sources from like New York Times? These further point to channels that are the most effective for your specific product. Versus nowadays, a lot of marketing people go to, oh, let's go execute on Facebook ads and go on Google search. But let's say you were someone like Uber and you were trying to recruit drivers. But is it often that drivers are on Google search? I mean, not necessarily, but somewhere where they are hanging out often is probably the streets of New York City, or they're probably stuck behind a New York City bus. Hence, putting messaging marketing there might reach them more likely than a Google search ad. Next question is, who are they influenced by? And this is especially powerful too. And that's why you see a ton of ads out there who pay so much money to invite celebrities to talk to you as the audience, because they know that you maybe look up to Shaquille O'Neal, or who are some of the more famous ones. Like recently, Kelly Clarkson has been in a lot of the Wayfair ads, because we know that we have an affinity towards these people and maybe are more likely to be open to their messaging than just some random person. So again, the question is, who are your target users influenced by? And this might not necessarily be any one individual, but it could be an institution. So for example, there are institutions of authority that I might be more open to listening to than just the regular person. Let's say if messaging came from a .gov site or the government directly, I might pay more attention to that, thinking that they have our interests in mind rather than maybe a company. So again, these questions will help you get towards, what channels should I be leveraging? What partnerships should I be establishing to develop into this marketing strategy? And this part will help you unpack a strategy that won't just be the traditional, oh, let's just go buy some Google ads and Facebook ads. I mean, those are not bad, and why they're so effective is most people are on them. But if you want to be more targeted and even perhaps maybe get more ROI out of your marketing, here you want to be more intentional about where your audience is. So in this step, it's also important to prioritize, because of course there's probably like 50 channels and you only have so much budget, so it'll be hard to try to boil the ocean and go for everything. So your two main prioritization criteria. Number one is the acquisition cost of acquisition. And here is also reflecting how much budget you have to spend on a marketing campaign. And number two would be the conversion volume. And here it's really important to consider there are things that might have low cost of acquisition, but the conversion volume and scale might be not very high. So here is again another trade-off that you have to keep in mind. Or there are certain marketing channels that have high scale, but the cost of acquisition is really expensive. So hence there's going to be some tinkering between the different channels, and you're probably going to choose a couple of channels to combine together rather than just dumping all of your money into one channel. Number 5, I want to talk to you about when. What does that mean? So when you're crafting marketing strategy, it's important to deliver your message at the right time, at the right place. So at the right time, that is when people are open to listening to a marketing message. For example, let's say a fire is happening in a building and you all of a sudden tell people, oh, get a chance to win $1 million. Like at that point, people are so stressed out and running around like crazy. They're not going to be paying attention to your marketing strategy. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but you get my point. You got to target people with your messaging once you get that down packed and when you get it to the right location at the right time as well. So what does at the right time even mean? When we're talking about at the right time, we're talking about what time during the year. For example, expensive products probably tend to have more of an adoption rate towards gifting seasons. So thinking about Christmas, thinking about birthdays, people are more open to spending that amount of money during these particular seasons. So hence your marketing is going to be the most effective around that time. Of course, for marketing expensive products, you probably want to seed into people's brains your product that you're trying to sell even before it gets to gifting season. So by the time they get there, they think of your product. But still, the highest ROI you're going to get is being close to gifting season and spamming them. Not spamming, marketing to them, as marketeers like to call, communicating to them about your product. And besides what time during the year or month, let's get more granular. What time during the day are people more likely to listen to your messaging? For example, if you're targeting white-collar workers, probably not during the workday because they're busy with business, work. But after hours, after 6, 7 p.m. when people get off work, and they're relaxing is where they're going to be more amenable to your message. And the third component of when is what life occasions are people going through that you can target. For example, if people are suddenly getting married, is probably a time they will be more open to your travel vacation packages. If people get a new job, that's probably when they're more likely to splurge, and you targeting to them more expensive products, they will have more of an open mind towards it. So this is your 5-step process. And how do you answer, how would I launch this product or come up with a go-to-market strategy? But you have to have something to market, like say a product. So how do we even come up with a product and answer the question, what product would you build in this space? Well, check out these 2 videos, which will help you answer that question during a Product Sense design interview. And I will see you guys in the next video.